Welcome to the Sideline. I'm Andy Katz. Well, this is going to be a home for a lot of original content in college sports and beyond. Now, of course, you're going to get a lot of that similar content that I produce for NCAA platforms, for Big Ten Network, and other places. But I needed a home for a lot of those interviews with the newsmakers in this space. So where are you going to find it? Right here at the Sideline. Let's get to it. And welcome, everyone, to a preseason chat as the end of summer draws. When it's nice weather in September, I still feel it. Well, technically, it is summer until, I think, the 21st. I'm Andy Katz, pleased to be joined by Eric Musselman, the head coach of USC, year two in the Big Ten. And new look roster, but what I love about this roster is you've got experience that has been to Final Four, Sweet 16. You got players that have been there. As you embark on this next campaign, what are your thoughts on the experience that you brought in through the portal?
Super excited, Andy. First, thanks for having me on, but we are excited about our roster. And you bring up the experience of Rodney Rice, who had a phenomenal year at Maryland last year, and you bring up Chad Baker-Mazara, who's got experience at San Diego State playing in big games and got incredible experience playing for Bruce Pearl and Auburn in their unbelievable year last year. So those two guys, from an experience standpoint, we're excited about. And then you look at other players like Jacob Coffey, who's coming from Virginia, and had a really good freshman year, and his game continues to grow. And so we are excited about this year's team. Terrence Williams is coming back from basically a season-long injury, and he's now back in the fold and gives us experience and toughness, and has played in the Big Ten, having his 3 years at Michigan. So super excited about this team, and unfortunate injury for a player that we had kind of built the roster around in Elijah Renis, but Elijah will do a great job attacking his rehab as well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned him. I mean, a catastrophic, the car accident, comes back from that, and then now the injury. Boy, he just needs to be in bubble wrap for a little while. How has he handled just multiple obstacles thrown at him?
Yeah, I mean, he's a special, not only, he's obviously a special basketball talent, but he's also got a special mentality. And so he's helping coach. He's helping with with game prep when we start talking. We pick a team a week, and even in the summer, and kind of go through a little bit of prep, both personnel prep, and also, instead of just doing normal shell defense, we'll take a certain play each day throughout the course of the week, and kind of turn that into our shell. And he's, pointing things out to teammates, and he's grabbing me and asking why we do this and why not that. And so he's super mentally engaged, and he's done a great job attacking his rehab as well.
Just one last thing on him. I mean, obviously, after the accident, before the knee injury, I mean, what was the thought process that he was even going to be able to play?
Yeah, I mean, the car accident, he was so lucky, Andy, that there was really no injury with arms, legs. It was really the smoke, inhaling the smoke was the biggest and most critical thing in his recovery from the car accident. And then unfortunately, with me, it was, he got one practice with he and I together. He practiced another time, but I was out recruiting during a live period during the other practice. So super unfortunate, but again, just the mental makeup of having a vision board in your own mind of what you want to how to attack the rehab process. And he and I have talked about that, and his teammates have done a great job trying to uplift him and support him as well.
We live in strange times in general, but certainly in the sport, that you have two players that played for you that are going to be at Washington. You have a player that was at Maryland. I mean, back in your Big Ten, way back in your Big Ten days, this never happened. what, how odd is it that like there's just all these moving pieces and you're not alone? I mean, UCLA, Michigan State, Michigan, UCLA, Illinois. I mean, it's like, everyone's sort of changing spots on the chessboard within the league.
Yeah, I mean it's different, but you know, I guess if you coach in the CBA, USBL, NBA, G League, NBA, it's you can have a player in your own locker room on trade deadline in the NBA, and you guys gonna walk across the hallway and put on the other uniform, and play against you in a matter of minutes. That's happened before, and so it's changing landscape. You got to adapt, and I think from as far as a player's perspective, players got the freedom to move. Players got the revenue share piece now, and so it's definitely a really good time to be a player. I think that some of the older guys, it's they didn't have the same, the same opportunity, so to speak, financially or with the ability to move and not, like I look at the Martin twins. I mean, when they transferred from NC State, they had to sit out a year, which meant they lost a year of competitiveness. Hopefully, that year helped them from a growth standpoint. But it might have taken a year away from their NBA, you know, getting there quicker too. So I do think from a player's perspective, there's a bunch of super positive things. Now we got to do a good job, having our fans understand that this is the new landscape of college athletics.
I know it's a different roster, but you guys had some great wins last year. I was there for one of them when you blew out Washington on the road. And obviously there was inconsistencies. What did you look at this past season? What did you see that even with different personnel that you guys could do better?
Well, I think the travel is the biggest thing, Andy, is just how do we navigate that? I thought that we were pretty prepared while we were on the road, meaning when we had shoot around times. And if we didn't get the shoot around time that we felt was the best for us, to go find another place to get it and not have our team get up too early based on, what we're used to. And you're right. We had a great win, an 11 a.m. game in Champaign was a great win because we were really worried when we saw the time tip off time, and then kind of what are we used to and all that type of stuff. And the home win against Michigan State was a big win for us. But consistency in dealing with travel is going to be super important. We felt like coming off the road um, was challenging for college players, meaning the road games are in and of itself challenging, but we did not play well against Minnesota at home. We did not play well against Ohio State. And I just vividly remember being in those huddles and trying to get the team, like we just didn't have a motor. Um, and then you have your postseason meetings with guys that you trust, and they say, "Hey, coach, it was hard coming back home off those travel to play and so that's kind of the player's word." So we got to do a better job, Andy, trying to manage that aspect from what we did last year.
And how much is that is how much of that is sleep, or what are the things that jumped out to you?
Yeah, I think sleep, potentially, um, understanding the nutrition aspect of it as well become super super important, and then just time management on coming back after you've missed class. Now that's a whole nother aspect that a player's got to deal with as well. So time management becomes super super important. Having really good discipline on what's important and what, maybe coming back from a road trip, what you got to leave out on the floor, and then what a player's got to leave out, on his personal side as well. All those things become factors.
The schedule, as you said, obviously that you can't determine that in the Big Ten. Talk about Maui, but what were your thoughts on how you were going to manage the non-conference to make sure outside of Maui that you're in position to be in position to get a bid?
Yeah, I mean, I think non-conference is like, I looked at, because UCLA is so close, so you look at their non-conference, the way they're building theirs, the way we are. Having talked to, Coach Mick about like, because they traveled a lot non-conference last year. And they had a heck of a year. Like, they were a team that made the NCAA tournament. They advanced. They could have, that was a team that was I thought was really well coached, really good, and I think the travel maybe affected them as well, non-conference even. So we tried to learn from the way they built their schedule out, and you want to always try to have a schedule that if you handle your business, you can go win. But the one thing that people don't understand outside when you look at non-conference schedules, we'll throw two of our conference games into our non-con because that's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of conferences are playing two less conference games than what we play. So I don't think it's fair to look at Big Ten teams' non-conference schedule. You got to look at the totality because we're playing two more conference games in the SEC. You you put two more SEC teams on the SEC schedules in conference play in that league, it'd be a lot like us. It becomes pretty challenging when you do that.
Last two things. First off, we talk about guards, wings. What's the answer inside for you guys this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think the inside play is, I mentioned Jacob and his experience at Virginia. So I think that I start there and then we start trying to piece this thing together like Ezra Sor from Utah um, is NBA next level athleticism, strength. And now it's just integrating all these other parts together in his game because he's a really good isolation player. And how he and Jacob fit together. Gabe Dines he's had a really good summer for us. He's a shot blocker. He ran the mile in an incredible time for somebody his size. We lacked the rim protection last year. We saw teams in the Big Ten that had great size, great length. We lacked that. Gabe gives us a different look in that manner. Jaden Burnell is a guy that can shoot the basketball. Had a really good year at Samford last year. He can stretch the floor as a space out five, or at the four can be a pick and pop four. So up front, we're still um, figuring out what that exactly looks like for us, Andy. But we do feel like we have more size, more depth, at that 4 or 5 position than we had last year.
Coach's challenge. It's an NBA rule. It's now in college basketball. How are you going to use it?
Good question. I'm not really sure. I think it'll be a work in progress for all of us. Do we designate one coach on staff to, like Major League Baseball and their challenges? I've talked to the Padres about how they have utilized their coaches' challenges, and I know what the Clippers do in their coaches' challenge, and not really sure, Andy. That's one area, at this time of year that we have not dissected, but it is on our line item of things to, as we get closer and we start looking at game prep assignments, that'll be certainly a new aspect. Who it is on staff, I don't really know who's going to be the go-to guy, but right now it's going to be Ellis Kahn will be our guy. I think that we're going to lean to in helping me with the challenges.
And last thing that won't happen, but it's being discussed, quarters or halves and advance the ball. We might see that at some point, not this upcoming season. Where do you stand?
Well, I'm not going like wishy-washy 50-50 on this. I'm strongly in favor of quarters and even more strongly in favor of advancing the ball. Advancing the ball makes the game, it takes it to a whole nother level. Now it's going to put a lot more pressure on coaches. That I'm positive because I've lived that life. And Chuck Daly, one of the first things he said in his coaching meeting, the first meeting I was around with him, is advancing the ball and the pressure to get the ball in best players' hands is so vital. So advancement of the ball, I think, would do nothing but make games much more interesting, keep people in their seats, keep people watching television. And then the reason that I'm in favor of the 4 quarters is because women's basketball has it, the NBA has it, like to me,
FIBA.
like like everybody in the world but us. So I think that for the casual fan, in our market, if he goes to a Laker game one night, a USC women's basketball game one night, a Clipper game one night, and then comes to our game, 3 out of 4 are the same. So it'd be really good if we had continuity throughout our sport. I think that would help. There's 9 innings in a baseball game, and then that's a whole nother thing is just the minutes as well and how that's different. Because I do think that there's a lot of strategic things that happen differently, and I don't think that we'll ever get to 48 minutes instead of 40 because that's never been discussed. But certainly the quarters, I think the continuity would help the game.
Yeah, I just think as long as the networks sign off, I think it'll happen, but they got to sign off on it. That's where we are. Eric, appreciate it as always. Love catching up.
Andy, appreciate you having me on. It's always great to talk with you.
Thanks for watching and listening, everyone. And as always, you can follow all our social media content at the Sideline with a K. Our content appears on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course, YouTube, TikTok, X, and Instagram. Check out all the content at the Sideline with a K.